Okay, let's call the meeting to order. There we go. And why don't we rise and follow David in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Yes, please.
Committee Member Jabris. Committee Member Frios.
Here.
Committee Member Maderos.
Here.
Committee Member Morris Lopez. Absent. And Chair Martirana.
Here. Okay. Why don't we start with any public comments? I see no one here and I see no hands on our online. So we will move on. No public comments, excuse me. Consent agenda. I'm gonna ask that we table the minutes, the approval of the minutes to our next meeting. And just approve the affidavit of posting. Do you have a motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in
moving it to the meeting minutes?
the meeting
Oh,
minutes
because we're
to
a
the
special
next.
meeting?
No, because they're not ready for
Oh.
us to go through that.
I did not know that.
All in favor of approving the affidavit of posting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, or okay, so review and discuss. I think at this point, let's see. Do we want to take our staff report at this time, Don?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. And I don't see Abram from the county with us yet, unless he is the 320-2491 phone number. But I do see Zane from EMC and Jennifer, the new executive director from LAFCO here, which would invite me then to start a discussion as suggested in the agenda on the sphere of influence and the LAFCO application process. And at our last meeting, we received resolution 2023-71, a notice of intent to approve a draft sphere of influence and to initiate a general plan amendment. And so the EMC study that was commissioned by the city on a prior version of the sphere of influence was changed and resubmitted to where it is today. It's consistent with our current political boundaries. So I've shared that with both LAFCO and the county in preparation for our conversation today. I'll say that we worked with Jennifer a year or so ago on a municipal services report that the county that LAFCO was doing on wastewater systems throughout the county. And when we talked at that time, Jennifer and I understood that the city would be moving forward with its own municipal services report related to our proposed sphere of influence. So that goes with the application then to LAFCO, and then we'll hear from Jennifer directly today on what LAFCO how LAFCO will process that. And that goes in company with Zane's study that he's doing addressing infill and our capability of meeting our housing needs with the current properties that are available for development within our political boundaries, rather than considering annexing new properties into our political boundaries. So that matches the draft sphere of influence. So that's a summary of where we're at. And when you're ready, we can invite Jennifer to introduce herself and talk about the LAFCO process.
Okay, do any questions from the committee members about the staff report?
I just want,
Can you grab your mic?
no, thank you.
Would you please grab your mic?
Sing some songs. Can I get some music? Don, I may have asked you this before and forgive me if I did, but when you talked about the infill opportunities, I think, yeah, I think I did mention this, but I forgot what your answer was. I know during the housing element update process, we also identified infill opportunities. Are those analyses going to be similar or different, or do we just take the housing element number? I think it was 188 or something like that, or how does that work?
Right, it's a combination, right? So we have an improved entitlement on Third Street, for example. And we're going to be bringing that project forward to the Planning Commission as an introduction. I've been talking with the developer, Elite Development, over the past couple months. So we'll bring that forward February 6th as an introduction. There's an opportunity there to even increase the density if you wanted to. The conversation is new. They're coming with fresh ideas, not just their approved plan for the 8 single-family houses on Third Street, but the property, there's a cul-de-sac that goes behind it up the hill. And so they've been talking about either 2 or 4 connected condominiums and a 2-story developments. So they're looking to increase the density if they can, and that would be an opportunity. But most importantly, 70 Muckalemme, we increase the zoning in the housing element to 24 units an acre. So that would allow as many as 75 units to be built on that property. And so that's where the real potential is for using infill to meet our arena numbers, which are only like 88, I think. They're less than 100.
Yeah, 11 a year. And I think you introduced Zane Mortensen as someone who's gonna be doing some analysis in that regard.
Right, right. The city council approved amending the MC agreement to focus on infill.
And will the deliverable by Mr. Mortensen be, this is the number of, notwithstanding you can increase densities, but here's the current number that San Juan can build.
It will address potentials. Yeah, we can let him speak to that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else from the committee? Okay, why don't we move on then to the sphere of influence LAFCO application process. And Jennifer, if you're amenable, well, I think at this point we'd love to hear from you. Unless, and if you have any questions for us initially or about the committee and how we're constituted and so forth, feel free to ask.
And we can put the map up if that helps.
Why don't we just, I think we're focused at this point on process,
Okay.
more on the specifics, unless she'd like us to put that up right away, we can, but either way, Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for involving me or including me in this discussion. I'm Jennifer Stevenson, and I started with San Benito LAFCO just a few months ago, so bear with me as I get my bearings and get up and running here. There's a lot to be done, but regarding your sphere of influence and the application and what that process looks like, I'm assuming you'd like me to walk you through the steps a little bit. Is that what the committee desires?
Yeah, I think that was the city manager would like to, for you to illuminate us a little bit on that process, if you would, please.
Okay, so for any sphere of influence significant update like what we're discussing here today, a municipal service review is a required component of that process, and that must come first. That being said, I know the city has talked about doing one on their own. We are also in the midst of that wastewater municipal service review that was mentioned, and that will be released probably towards the end of February. But a significant portion of that report can be reused for San Juan Bautista and their MSR. And that was the intent, is to capitalize on what's what we're drafting right now so that it can be reused in the next fiscal year for the city and LAFCO to work together on completing a city-specific municipal service review, with the addition of not just wastewater services, but all of the other municipal services that are provided by the city. So it's a great opportunity for a reduction in cost, because MSRs can cost upwards of like $45,000 if you get an outside consultant in to do a pretty comprehensive review. So that is LAFCO's adopted plan for the next fiscal year is 2 city MSRs, and once those are adopted by LAFCO, then we can process the sphere of influence update. The sphere of influence update needs its own separate report, which can be combined with the MSR. It would be 2 separate components, though, of the same document. Would be sphere of influence review of options analysis, and then maybe some kind of absorption discussion and vacant parcels discussion that might be taken just from your housing element that you were discussing. And then draft sphere of influence determinations. There's certain required components and determinations that LAFCO must come to. So both of these reports are reports that LAFCO would adopt, not the city. I mean, certainly you could approve it, but it's for LAFCO's purposes, and there are certain legal requirements for LAFCO to adopt these determinations in the MSR and the sphere of influence update report. From that point, if the sphere of influence update report is adopted with the determinations and the recommended sphere of influence or proposed sphere of influence that's in that report, then it's approved by LAFCO. That's about the only application process is this process of MSR sphere of influence update report, and then consideration by LAFCO at this point.
Okay. Would it be helpful for you to see the map at this point? Can we put that up? I don't know if have you heard anything or seen anything up to this point about
it's my understanding that you are going to proposing to reduce the sphere of influence back to the city limit, and then create a planning area. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
Well, and it would all, yeah. So essentially we have recommended to the city council, and they have accepted the recommendation to have the sphere of influence be coterminous. Is that the term? Coterminous with the current city limits. And we are interested in creating a planning area that we will work towards some sort of memo of agreement with the county for handling sort of projects within that planning area outside the municipal boundaries, the current municipal boundaries. And Dan, you had a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Jennifer. I had just a introductory type question for you. I want to venture a guess that it's not very often in your line of work that a city reduces its sphere of influence as opposed to requests to expand it. And I guess my question is, if that guess is correct, in what ways might our process differ as a result? In that, you're right, we are reducing it pretty substantially, especially relative to the sphere of influence that I understand to be operative as of right now, which is significantly larger than the new proposed sphere of influence, which is coterminous with the city limits. So what differences are there in the process that you see, since it's being reduced, not expanded?
It should be actually substantially easier than processing an expansion, just because there's a lot of pre-zoning that needs to go into, or land use considerations that needs to go into expanding the sphere of influence. And I would generally recommend wait until your general plan update is completed if you were proposing a sphere of influence increase. In this case, because it's a reduction, I don't know that that's necessary, just because that pre-planning doesn't need to occur if you're reducing it. And the environmental review as well. While a sphere of influence change is not subject to CEQA, it's something that LAFCO takes into consideration. So all that being said, easier is the answer. And yes, it is unusual.
Well, thank you very much. I was obviously hoping you might say that. Intuitively, it seems like it'd be a lot easier if you're looking to reduce it significantly, as I said, especially relative to the operable San Juan sphere of influence that exists today. So thank you for the answer. I appreciate that.
Along those same lines, the municipal services review, we're already providing those services to the city. How much do we really need to dive into that in terms of a full-blown review?
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Can you repeat that once more?
Sure. Since we're already providing all of the city services within the municipality today, and the proposed SOI is coterminous with that, do we need to do the same full-blown municipal services review and or is that simplified as well?
I would say that the same level of detail is likely needed, more so to inform kind of the status quo for LAFCO's purposes, because the service review hasn't been completed on the city in quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a long time, 20 years.
So I would still recommend that level of detail. I think it's a great tool for not only LAFCO's purposes, but the public and the city's purposes as well. So in addition, while you are proposing to decrease the size of your sphere of influence, LAFCO has to come to certain determinations on if services being provided within your existing boundaries are adequate, and identify infrastructure needs and deficiencies. So still there's a need to address the services within your boundaries, even though we're not talking about a sphere expansion.
Yeah, that's going to depend a lot on who you ask.
Always.
Sorry, that was a softball. I couldn't help myself. Great. Okay. That's very helpful. Any other questions from the committee for Jennifer? And welcome to San Benito County, by the way. Are you here, or are you working this position remotely?
I work remotely. I am executive officer to San Benito and Plumas and Lassen LAFCOs. So three different Lassen.
What was the last one?
Lassen.
Oh, Lassen. And so are you resident in Northern California?
I have an office in Elk Grove area and Southern California. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll try not to hold that against you. Jack, you had a question?
Yeah, actually just an introduction. Hi, Jennifer, Ms. Stevenson, welcome. I'm Jackie Morris Lopez. I believe I left you several voicemails. I'm not sure if you were able to check those, and I would please encourage you to reach back to me. And then my question is, since we do have a current SOI and we have the intention, full-on intention of amending that to a much smaller area, are you going to honor, or LAFCO honor, that we do not recognize, nor do we want the larger sphere of influence?
Well, that would be part of this application process that we're talking about, and up to the commission to determine. So I can't speak to that right now.
So your answer is you do not know and cannot confirm.
Well, right, I can't speak for what the commission will provide direction to staff about. But generally, I can say if it's the desire or wishes of the city to make this change in their sphere of influence, then LAFCO would likely support that.
I think there has been some conversation locally about whether or not we do in fact have an official sphere of influence. And I think that might be partly what Jackie was getting at. Is that right, Jackie? Yes.
Partially, but more importantly, that we are in the process of reducing it. And just as a matter of detail, whether or not the county or LAFCO can go into a status of holding right now and not looking at the other previous, whether we know if it's official or not. It's a much larger area, which gives us much pause and concern.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that Dawn wanted Jennifer to be in attendance here today, so that she could see and understand where we were headed, and so that if some issue came up, if something came before them, would not be heading off on a different direction without informed only by what may or may not exist in the old files. So that I think it's a very good question, and I think now we've made it pretty clear to her that the direction we're headed. So, and now we have a clear picture of what we need to provide to LAFCO in order to get the application submitted and finalized. So I think Dawn was hoping that the committee would be able to assist in putting together some of the paperwork and any reporting that may need to be done. And I'll circle back with Dawn, I guess, after the meeting to get maybe a little more clarification along those lines. If anybody has any other questions, Dan, you had a question, please?
Yeah, well, it's a good segue to what you were discussing, Mr. Chair, just now, which is, maybe this question is better addressed to Jennifer and Dawn in tandem. What's our general sense of timing for getting this done? We're now almost at the end of January. As far as the application getting turned in, potential review by the LAFCO committee, approval, et cetera. Do we have like a critical path for this project?
Well, that's a good question. I have a question for Jennifer, because the work that we were doing with EMC is that general plan amendment, and I thought that had to inform the SMR and go forward together. And so we just approved the agreement with EMC, and I'm glad Zane is able to join us today. Because I thought we were looking at a draft of that, say by the end of April or early May. So Jennifer, you're saying because the SOI is now the same as our political boundary, that general plan amendment isn't as important or isn't required? Or help us all understand the role of the EMC study now. Or I can let Zane describe it for us, and you can answer from Zane's description.
Well, I can tell you that it's a good idea to have a general plan update to inform the MSR. It will make the MSR that much easier. Generally, though, the general plan update is more essential when we're talking about a sphere increase. Yes. But it will still be useful and will make the process much more efficient and ensure that everyone is on the same page as far as what the proposed plan is by hashing it out through the general plan process. So I would definitely recommend continuing on course with that general plan amendment.
Okay.
And as far as timing, we would have to, we have budgeted for the next fiscal year to address the city MSRs, like I mentioned, as well as what we already have drafted this year. So we could, as far as timing wise, address the city's sphere sometime in early 2025, I could anticipate, if the general plan update is completed by then.
Yeah, I think we were hoping for June.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does just depend on your general plan update. If it gets done that quickly, then great, then we can consider it, and the amount of work that the city puts into the MSR versus LAFCO. Like I said, we have that budgeted for the next fiscal year, so we wouldn't be able to start that drafting process until the beginning of July. But if the city would like to put in effort into pre-drafting sections, then it would certainly move the process along faster.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It sounds like we need to gather some more information and yeah. Any?
Can I just make a philosophical comment? We have two council members here.
Philosophy.
No philosophy?
Too late in the afternoon for
I
that.
think therefore I am.
Or is it too early?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the council members or the city manager, but it seems that at some point, and maybe it's now, it would behoove us to break the SOI away from the other stuff, the UGB planning area, all the other, because that's going to be a general plan amendment. But when in terms of reducing a sphere line to what's being proposed, that seems pretty cut and dry, easy, and therefore presumably could happen a lot more quickly than all the other work that we have to do. So can we break the LAFCO SOI thing free and let it go on its own path in a more expeditious way that would save you time and money?
Now, I'd like Zane to describe his role in this process, but what I heard Jennifer say is that the work that Zane's doing is a pretty tight window and focuses mostly on the sphere of influence and design guidelines and other things. So they've already done a lot of the work. It just needs to be tweaked towards infill instead of those properties that we identified previously. So Zane, could you speak to your scope of work and your perceived role in the general plan amendment? Zane, can you hear us? Did you you unmuted? Well, Jennifer, am I correct? Regardless, we have to complete the SMR. LAFCO pays for the SMR and it won't be budgeted until July 1, right? And I think
Yes.
EMC could finish their process, get a final draft at least by July 1.
Yes, and I do think that would be the most financially beneficial to the city, just because you're already footing the bill for part of LAFCO. So why not let those funds pay for the MSR for the city? So I would recommend that, but once again, and knowing your timeline and the desire to expedite it as quickly as possible, we can certainly try to make sure that it happens first and foremost in July to get that on the docket sooner. than later.
We very much appreciate it if we could slide to the head of the line on that one.
Yeah, yeah, and staff will do its best to support and make LAFCO's job as simple as possible. We're an advantage because we have a water master plan and a wastewater master plan. And those are freshly minted, so that's a big cut to the chase for us. It's interesting to see what happens as the fire district concept evolves, because fire services are, of course, part of our services that we deliver. So there are a few balls up in the air, but we'll see how those things move. Zane, I don't know if you can hear us, but we couldn't hear you. If you wanted to try again, maybe your microphone is working.
Okay.
So I think we're all on the same page, which is great, and I appreciate the schedule from Jennifer and describing how we're going to work with LAFCO this calendar year to get this project.
Can I say one more thing here? I just
course.
want to bring up the point that I would ensure that before LAFCO considers any change in your sphere of influence, that you have a solid agreement in place with the county regarding the joint planning of the area surrounding your city. Once you relinquish your sphere of influence, it kind of gives up the power to negotiate with the county regarding that territory. So definitely as a precursor, I would highly recommend making sure that that is finalized before LAFCO considers any reduction.
Thank you for that. That's helpful, I think. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. We looked at an example from Ventura County in Moore California, and they had that ordinance with the county locked in, and then they adopted a sphere of influence equal to their political boundary. I'm not sure which sequence. I'd have to double check my notes, but yeah.
She's saying to make sure that's all nailed down before.
Before we do, yeah, and Jennifer, that's our next conversation. We have Ariel from the county on this call as well.
Great.
Jennifer, thank you very much for your for the information. And I'll be clear, obviously you'll be having a lot of contact with Don. And we may, I suspect one or more of us from the committee will probably be contacting you as well, just to see where we can hopefully add value.
Excellent. Sounds good. I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time today.
Okay, so that was 4A, discuss the SOI LAFCO application process. 4B is discuss the planning area distinct from sphere of influence. And looks like Ariel has joined us from the county. Ariel, welcome. What's that?
Hi, thanks for having us.
Ariel, I'm sorry. Bear with me one sec. I'm being chastised because I've overlooked I'm being admonished because I've overlooked a step.
Is it admonished? Yeah.
No, she's the professional. I'm just the at-large. I'm just the at-large member. So we're gonna take any public comment on item 4A. I don't see anyone in the room. And I'm not seeing any hands online for public comment. Oh, there is. Anna Bornstein, please go right ahead. If you could introduce yourself, Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Bornstein. Let me get my camera on here. I work at EMC Planning.
Great.
Terrific.
Okay, great. I was trying to get in here and get off, get my audio going. So I'm not as versed as Zane in the the history of the project, but I just wanted to clarify our understanding, our scope of work regarding the general plan amendment, and if that would indeed cover what you're discussing here in terms of the sphere of influence and the needs for that. Ours was more just focused directly on the infill development framework, which I really will be drafted off of the housing element and the opportunity sites, and then just, diving deeper into that and providing just policies and programs to support those numbers, which also ties back to the, RENA numbers.
Right. Okay. Is that all you had for us?
Yeah, so I just wanted to
Great.
talk about if you had any questions or, yeah.
No, anybody from the panel have questions of the committee? Don, did you have a question?
No, we're
Okay.
good. We need to,
Okay.
get rolling though, Anna. We'll try and get that signed for you as soon as we can.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, any public comment on 4A? Again, nothing in the room here. Any hands online? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4B, discuss the planning area distinct from sphere of influence. Again, I think we'll shift to conversation with Ariel from the county. And Ariel, forgive me, but maybe you could introduce yourself, and if you'd like us to introduce ourselves, and can go through that. In fact, maybe we should start there. So I'm Chris Martorena. I'm the chair of the SOI and UGB ad hoc committee for the city. I am an at-large member of the public and the chair of the committee. Our committee is made up of 2 planning commissioners, 2 city council members, and myself. We'll start to my left with David Medeiros from the Planning Commission, Jackie Morris Lopez from the City Council, Dan DeVries from the Planning Commission, and Scott Friels, the mayor from the City Council. So that's the composition of our committee, and our mandate our goal was to create recommend to the City Council a sphere of influence and look at an urban growth boundary. And as a part of our deliberations and work, we have also recommended what we're calling a planning area, or an area of concern surrounding the city, so outside of our city limits, that we would like to work more closely, or I shouldn't characterize it that way. We want to codify the relationship between the county and the city staffs so that it's very clear what everybody's role and expectation is with regard to development outside the city that's relatively close to the city of San Juan Bautista that we may be concerned with for one reason or another. And, recognizing that it's your jurisdiction, but that we do have a vested interest in the success of the, projects that surround us, and that we are county residents. We're all members of your constituency as well.
That was very well said.
Thank you. So Ariel, if you'd like to, I don't know you, so I'd love to if you could give me just introduce yourself, that'd be helpful.
Hi, well, it was so nice to meet you and everyone there today. My name's Ariel Goodspeed. I'm the principal planner for the county of for the county of San Benito. I do want to say that Abraham just did get out of a meeting and he is working to get logged in, so he will be joining us shortly. I know Abraham Prado, and he will introduce himself when he's on, but he's the Director of Planning and Building for the County of San Benito. We are, very excited to have, the opportunity to, collaborate on the long-term planning, for, the area that, both our jurisdictions kind of come together on. I think, this is, really important discussion we're having today. So, thanks for including us into that. If there is when it is outside of the sphere, it does, fall onto, the county's, general plan, planning effort. Most of that area, right outside of your sphere, or if the sphere was to change, is, ag, currently,
Yes.
designated ag area. So, currently the county, did receive, um, uh, from the Department of Conservation, a $500,000, grant. And so later this year, we will be, looking at doing an agricultural element. And, would
Wow.
be actively have this, city of San Juan Bautista, participation in that effort. Especially as we really get into, we would like to do or as part of it, we're going to be doing a public advisory, committee,
Right.
similar
Great.
to what you're doing now, to, really look at all of our ag designation, and, you know, what, what we should, be doing for our, next 20 to 30 years. So,
Sure.
I'm hoping that, these two efforts will kind of cohesively come together, to plan, for our residents.
Sure. Well, I think the many jurisdictions will cast a pretty wide swath with their sphere of influence, with the intent of using that as a mechanism for control. And we as a committee recommended going a different direction, in that we recommended a very tight sphere, because we didn't want to we didn't want to say to developers, others, other property owners, that we're inviting you to come and be added to the city, and thus the planning area, because clearly those parcels around us, the land around us, has an effect on us, impacts us. And so we opted for a sort of a different mechanism, and this is our first real communication outside of ourselves here. We have a very, very tentative sort of table of interactions, of actions that would guide a project potentially through your department, our department, or our planning department, and how they would interact. And I for one am not sure we're at a point. I don't feel like we're at a point where we should necessarily say, here's what we're looking for, because we are certainly have not arrived at what we think are good concrete processes, but we're still working on it. But we wanted to get you guys into the process and into the conversation, so that you are aware of what was going on. We can show you the map with the planning area that we have suggested, and the city council has accepted, and that we would like to, and essentially what we're driving toward is a memo of agreement. What we'd like to end up with is a memo of agreement with you guys, with the county. So that would go to the supervisors, that would govern how we address development on the fringes, and sort of in the neighborhood of San Juan Bautista. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that absolutely does, make, sense. It sounds like some sort of maybe MOU, or I'm not sure how we would.
Yes, exactly right. In the case we have used, we've taken some direction or cues. Good, thank you. Some cues from the city of Sonoma and Sonoma County, where they've adopted a similar approach, In their case, they've created a JPA, and have a group. And I can't remember what it's
On
called.
the dais before you is an excerpt from their website.
What is it? It is the Sonoma Valley Community Advisory Commission, which is, my first impression is that it's maybe a little, it may be a little, ambitious for San Benito County and San Juan Valley. But the generally what the idea is that it is an agreement between the county and the city that governs, development within that, in their case, is a very, very large area. And helps make it very clear, and so that there's no misunderstandings. And as I understand it, the communication in the last few years has been excellent. So we don't want anybody to think that we think, there's been any deficiency. We just want to make sure it's very clear, what everybody's expectations are, because stuff does, it can fall through the cracks, and personnel changes, and, you start to have things that, are understood by folks that have been around for a long time, and those unofficial processes, we'd like to make them official.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Ariel, my name's Dan DeVries. I'm from San Juan Bautista.
Hi, Dan.
I wanted to follow up on your, of course, you start saying numbers like 500,000 to protect ag around San Juan Bautista, you're gonna get everyone's attention around here. And what's your understanding as to how that money is to be spent? For example, could it go towards the acquisition of agricultural open space easements for willing landowners?
So there is grant money to do that. It's not incorporated as part of this application. This application is to put together an agricultural element within our general plan. Right now, the county, under our land use element, has like a couple like ag policies, but what's required by state law is either you have under your like natural resource section, you have like its own agricultural section, or you have its own chapter, an agricultural element chapter. And so this is first to put like the policy in place, so then we can apply for grants to be able to do exactly that. So it's kind of step one to do, being able to do that.
So then your thought is to go out to bid on an RFP or something for a vendor to create what would amount to be a county general plan amendment for a whole new section dealing with agriculture. Did I say that right?
Yes, and and looking, I mean, for example, transfer development credit, is like, something to consider, looking at, the ag economy, and, what kinds of, policy or land use, decisions best support that economy or improve that, economy. And and we just have, I don't think we've done, looked at it, comprehensively and, enough. So this would hopefully, I mean, get a lot of, data that, we haven't done previously. So, as part of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
do you have any questions for us, or should we, throw the map up for you to get a look at? Brace yourselves, because it's gonna be shocking.
Does she wait for Abraham or she on there?
I don't know.
They did get a copy of the packet.
Pardon me?
and They did get a copy of the
Oh,
packet,
okay.
which includes Commissioner, Committee Member DeVries's concepts.
Gotcha. And she still called in. That's a good sign. Yes, ma'am.
Digress to really early on item 4A. We had the speaker representative from EMC. And I think because we're all on the same page talking about our general plan amendment.
Mhm.
And so I just want to make really clear, Mr. Reynolds, that I thought the contract was involving not just the infill work that we want within the city boundary, but also they were to look at our general plan to amend any sections that refer to our previous planning area with our previous city manager.
You are correct. You are correct.
Because that's not what I heard the young lady say.
She was describing the scope.
Yeah, I'm
The
not.
scope that she described was only specific to
Right.
infill.
What she described was what's different between this scope and the scope we had 6 months ago. So a lot of the work that you're talking about just needs to be gone through and updated. So you are correct, though.
Okay, do we? Liz, are you able to put that map up for us? That's the one. So Ariel, have you had a chance to look at this at all?
Yes, I did take a look at it. And I'm interested, to find out more, I guess what you're, as part of the green belt, what's some of the ultimate goals, I guess.
Sure.
Because you still have, people, running, maybe different big businesses,
Yes, yeah.
growing. So
Yes.
I guess I'm interested to learn more about your future thoughts.
Yeah, and so as I said earlier, we're still, this is very much a work in progress. We believe that conceptually we are interested in development that happens within this area. And but we are not prepared to come to you with a proposal and say, here's what we want. This is what we want. We're just not there yet. And so I don't want to scare you, and I don't want you guys to get too concerned. But we want you to be aware that this is the area that we as a community feel is important to us, outside the city limits. And it has to do with view sheds and preservation of ag land, preservation of viewscapes, preserving night sky, dark sky, preserving hilltop views. Not having really ugly industrial development created, having a little more aesthetic planning and anticipating traffic impacts and concerns. And I'm just sort of throwing off stuff that has occurred to me and has been a part of some of the conversation, but we're not really, we're not there yet. So I don't want you guys to get too concerned at this stage. But I think what we're saying is, hey, we at the very least, we want to know what's going on. We want to be absolutely certain we know that what's being proposed and suggested in this area. And there's probably, and then as we get closer into the city limits, for instance, we might want to have much more of a direct say in what transpires. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think all of your points, I think our two jurisdictions definitely, agree about, you know, view sheds and, the hillsides and,
Yeah,
the ag preservation and we're definitely at a good critical, juncture here. I do see that Abraham actually joined,
oh, great.
um as well, so I'm sure he can add to this conversation. We do have our own, some of our own
Sorry.
policies of either under our general plan or in our ordinances to kind of protect some of those there. We have a night skies ordinance and a lighting
Sure,
ordinance, but I
sure.
think you know um it'd be great to work together on some of those
Right.
things and see, maybe what additional things or what changes might work.
Right. Well, and well, I appreciate that. There is some additional information that is very preliminary in the packet. So there's a map, this map with some highlighted in different colors, and then a sort of a key to where what the planning process might look like within those color coded zones. And that is, I would call that our first pass. And we have, as a group, our goal is to to codify that and make a recommendation that we would then, I think, sit down with you and I don't know the board of supervisors. I'm not sure what that process is going to look like. That's another conversation for staff to then try to hammer out and ultimately arrive at an MOU. But we wanted to come up with sort of a framework for the conversation to bring to you, rather than asking you to do any sort of legwork as at the outset here. Yeah, I think Dan had a comment or question. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I wanted to welcome Abraham. Are you there, Abraham?
I am. Thank you so much, everybody. My apologies. I was supposed to be actually present, but I was asked by Supervisor Curl and our CAO to please join them in another meeting that was supposed to end by 3:40, and it went over. My apologies. Ray also told me to tell you please to apologize to all, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
If Ray and the supervisor tell you to be in a meeting, it sounds like you better be there, huh?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Well, welcome, Abraham. I don't think you've missed a whole lot. We started off with a pretty general discussion about the LAFCO process, and the punchline there is that since we are greatly reducing our current sphere to be the equivalent of our city limits, otherwise known as coterminous with our city limits, then the process shouldn't be difficult at all. We kind of went through that a little bit. And then the last few minutes, we've been talking with Ariel about this whole concept of a planning area outside of those city limits and the new sphere line. And I think that it might be, this is what I wanted to add. It might be most helpful to just start with some very kind of fundamental principles, philosophies here. And that is that if an application, if a developer wants to apply to do something outside of our city limits, then that application is going to be turned into you guys on technology. And as it sits now, as things stand now, you would process that application the way that we know that you do a great job with it. And we also, as the chair indicated, we've also enjoyed a wonderful relationship with the county historically, to where We might even expect a phone call from Ariel or from Abraham or from maybe the supervisor for District 2 saying, hey, just a heads up, we got an application for a Formula One speedway on the Nyland Ranch, just hypothetically speaking.
Sure.
And then allow the city to comment on that. What do you think? What do you think? That's a good idea, bad idea? And we, like I said, we very much appreciated that relationship with the county. We're looking to memorialize that in some ways. So the philosophical proposition is that there is an area around San Juan Bautista, which is marked by that green line. And within that area, if something happens, if you guys receive an application, we'd like to know about it. And if the application is for something, some kind of development process, well, it stands to reason that the closer it is to us, the more we care about it.
Yeah.
Conversely, the farther away it is from us, the less we care. So we've been having a discussion, which is, as the chair indicated, is still ongoing, as to what does that look like from a practical standpoint. If you, for example, were to receive an application for Mission condos right underneath the Mission San Juan Bautista, well, we'd want a lot to say about that, even though it's county ground. We would want to play a role in that review and application process. So what does that look like? So we've tried to, like I said, formalize those concepts. We've taken some steps in that regard. If you have the colored map that I guess was provided to you, the area that's yellow around the city, that is meant to illustrate, denote the area that we care the most about. The orange, medium concern, and the blue, not that much. We would want notice and maybe an opportunity to comment. You know, so what the comment might look like is that it's put on the City of San Juan Bautista Planning Commission agenda. Planning Commission discusses it, makes a formal comment in a letter or memo or something, which is forwarded to the county. And then you guys would include our comment in the packet for the county planning commissioners when they do their review, or the board if it goes all the way to the board. So it's just a way for this city to participate in the planning process for county applications in the planning area. And the closer it is to us, the more of a role we want to take. And the further away from us it is, the less of a role. So like I said, hopefully that kind of simplifies things a little bit. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much.
Do you, yeah, and so we're not, we're not really looking for comment necessarily at this stage. We wanted to bring you into the conversation, make sure you were aware of where we were headed. We have begun reaching out to supervisors to sort of introduce this to them as well. We'll continue, I think, to do that as we refine what our sort of preliminary or proposed MOU, and look at some of those considerations. And at that stage, when our committee has deliberated some more and come to a more specific conclusion as to those asks, we'll then have a more substantive conversation with you guys, if you're amenable to that.
Absolutely.
And if you
that's
have
great.
other suggestions for process, we're certainly open to that. But that's sort of where we are at this stage. This is more introductory, I guess.
Thank you.
Ariel, please go right ahead.
Well, in the intermediate, we can pass out to our planning staff, the boundary area and make sure that any applications that are coming through that are located within there, that we're at least routing over to the city's planning department to be aware of and comment on.
That is extremely generous of you, and I think we would all very, very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Two thumbs up. Four stars.
Yeah.
Councilmember Morris Lopez says 5 stars.
Absolutely.
So that's very kind of you. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Do you guys, again, do you have any other questions for us? Uh,
Not at this time.
Okay, any further comments from the committee? Any questions or comments for the? No, it's okay to say no. It just means we get to leave earlier.
No. It's not so much as formulating questions perhaps that I
Yeah.
can carry forward.
Yeah,
Knowing what we need to go with this. I don't have the mic on, but yeah, I'm formulating whatever I can in my mind, thinking going forward,
right,
with questions.
Good.
Eventually, as we come together as a committee.
good,
And, I'm getting a lot of that today.
good. But, and I think one of the things that'll be helpful from the county staff is some of the mechanics of it, where we're sort of thinking in terms of philosophically how we look at it. We also, for you guys to kind of think about it in terms of the mechanics of the process, that'll be very helpful as well as city
Yeah,
staff.
one of
here.
the things looking ahead, if I can, into
Yes, sir.
the future. And we're doing what we can right now to update our general plan.
Yes,
And to accommodate whatever purposes we have coming out of this committee. So my question is, how much of what we do here today
Mhm.
will generate changes within the county's general plan? You know, I mean, are we going to be on the same page when it comes to, because when I read our general plan in its entirety and I look at what the county plan has to offer, there's a lot of elements in there that are saying the same thing.
yeah,
And so how many places do we have? I mean, we don't want to double our efforts on something that's already been stated in all of our general plans, and the mission is basically doing the same thing for each other. I think all we need to do as far as going forward is to see what differentiates
sure,
our mission, our vision.
sure. Well, and I think
And
that'll,
but I'm thinking we're awfully close as it is when I look at the
Yeah.
general plans.
yeah, I don't think we have a lot of
And-
discrepancy.
Yeah, it's just that we haven't been able to do this before in the past.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think I suspect we're not far off.
So the question will remain until we get close to
Yes,
putting this in cement.
yes,
I'm hoping. Thank you.
sure. Jack, you have any questions? Comments?
Hi, this is Jackie Morse Lopez, council member and committee here member. Thank you for being present. I'm glad that we're all here together because I think this is maybe the first time in a long time, or even first time ever, that the county is willing to listen and hear Juan Bautista in regards to developing a planning area, which is a new animal, and hearing us out for what we want to do moving into the future. What sounds like with what Ariel Godspeed said about, looking at preservation and acknowledging our rich heritage to agricultural industry and land. So I think we're all on the same page, I hope. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Friels, Mr. Mayor, nothing to add. He's the mayor. Dan, anything else? Dan, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to echo Councilmember Morse Lopez's comments and thank Abraham and Ariel for participating in this process, and let this be the beginning and the start of a great conversation and relationship to follow. Hopefully we can have more discussions. We can keep the lines of communication open. And that's both ways, Abraham and Ariel. If you guys have further thoughts on this process as we go through it, please don't be shy and let us know what they are.
That means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Great. Anything from you guys? Any additional comments or questions from you guys? If not, then I will ask for public comment. And I came up with that all on my own. Okay, there's nobody sorry? No hands raised. That means we can move on. to the way you were jumping around in your seat. I thought we needed to take a break, but I guess we're okay. So 4C, City County Memorandum of Understanding. I think, guys, for those of you from the county, this section is really intended for us amongst ourselves to
How the sausage is made.
yeah, this is what you're gonna see. Yeah, if you want to see how the sausage is made, just stay on. And you're perfectly welcome to stay on, but I don't think there's any necessity for you to. It is a public meeting, obviously. We're a Brown Act, we're covered by the Brown Act, so this is all public deliberation. But I think at this point, we're gonna move on to a more specific conversation about what our ask is gonna be when we get to that point finally. Okay? Thank you, guys. I very, very much appreciate you being here with us. We just really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the invitation from Don, and anytime. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
let's see. So here we go. Item C. Memorandum of Understanding or Agreement. That is our preferred language. Please note that. City staff. MOU should be MOA.
What's have we bounced that off of legal?
Pardon me?
How about we bounce that off
No.
of legal? How about if we do that before we make it?
Oh, no. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's, I think we come up with what we think that our ask should be. And then my guess is that we would do exactly that. Send it over to the city attorney for his comments.
Oh, you were just talking about the acronym, weren't you? MOU versus MOA?
That's what we were talking about.
That's what you guys were talking about. Oh,
That's correct.
I thought I was saying the city attorney 2 times.
No.
That's what you say.
MOU versus MOA.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I thought
Sorry. I thought you meant the whole thing.
I don't care what the acronym is, as long as it's binding.
That's, yeah. But we can,
It's enforceable.
yeah.
You can call it PBJ as long as it's enforceable.
Well, Chair,
Okay.
how do you want to proceed with this? Staff doesn't really have anything.
No, that's all, it's all good. So we have the color-coded map and key, I guess I would call it the key to that map. You guys have seen before. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it and absorb it. And I guess it's the time for us to begin discussion of the map for one, as well as the sort of the tiers. And maybe we should start with the key. And if there's questions or concerns or changes or suggestions, we can address that. And then to look at it in context of the map and see if there are adjustments that we feel need to be made accordingly. So.
You want to start with the 3rd tier and go backwards? Since it's the easiest.
Sure. Does that work for everyone? We'll start with tier 3, which is the blue shaded information.
So I can take the liberty of describing this since I was the one to type it up, but in so doing, I'm not intending at all to imply that this is the way to do it. These are just some thoughts and ideas, hopefully worthy of gaining your further input and consideration. So the 3rd tier, blue, this is the area again that we presumably care about, but to a lesser extent.
So looking at the quick question, sorry, Vice Chair DeVries, so looking at your color-coded map, if I also look at the outline with the planning area, does that colored map, I'm actually superimposing it within those?
That's right.
Okay, got it.
That's right. In fact, the color-coded map, what I used to color that in was the other one. It's just a smaller version. Yeah, you see the same kind of shape.
Yeah.
what's that, Rorschach test or something? So, so the third tier, blue, this is the least amount of importance to us, presumably to the city. So the first thing would be, obviously, any of these three areas will be triggered, or the conversation won't even begin unless and until an application is filed for development. And that application would be filed with the county, because jurisdictionally, it is their place, it's their territory. So applications filed with the county for development. Okay, now what happens next? Two, county forwards the application to San Juan. So that's what I was intending there, was just that's the notice, right? So when we say we want to know about projects that are proposed or being applied for within the planning area, how do we find out about them? Well, according to the contract between us and the county, otherwise known as MOA or MOU, the county would be required to forward an application that they receive within our planning area to us. And that would be the way that they say, hey, San Juan, this is what they're asking for. What happens after that? County would then process the application as they normally would. Same steps, including CEQA compliance, of course. After they finish their processing, and before it goes to the County Planning Commission, just like San Juan does, the county prepares a staff report for each of the planning commissioners. Well, we would want to see a copy of that staff report here at the city. And not just see it, we would want that staff report to be placed, number 5, on the San Juan Planning Commission agenda, included in the therefore included in the packet for San Juan as a discussion item. The San Juan Commission would then discuss, what do we think about this proposal for something in one of the blue areas? And there would be a motion to, well, the discussion would hopefully culminate in comments. The idea being that this would be the official comment from the city of San Juan Bautista back to the county as to what San Juan thinks of this proposal within that blue area. Those comments then would be included by the county in the packets for the San Bernardino County Planning Commission hearing. So therefore, at the end of the day, county planning commissioners would be sitting there considering everything, the CEQA analysis, or maybe it's a mitigated negative declaration, maybe it's an EI or whatever, but they would also have something in their packet from the city of San Juan Bautista saying, this is what San Juan thinks about this. And it could be, we think this project could be okay, but we want to be careful of these things, or it could be as strong as we, the city of San Juan Bautista, recommend and urge the county to deny this application. Or it could be as innocuous as we think it's fine, no changes needed, whatever. The city would have an opportunity to have its wishes be known to the county in that way. Could the county say, that's nice, San Juan, thank you for your input, but yeah, no, and ignore us? Yeah, but that could happen now. At least this way, we would know that our voice is being heard in a very formal, official way. So that's blue. What do you think?
The only, I think it's great. The only concern is time frame.
Mhm.
From application to the time it finally gets to the county planning. How much are we gonna hold up this by us intervening in the middle?
Probably a month.
And then we need to probably find out from the county ordinances if they are okay with that. If it's, if they say, if an applicant comes in July 1st, we want to be able to see them by, I'm just throwing out numbers, July 17th.
Mhm.
And by throwing us in the middle, it'll be July 30th now.
Mhm.
So we probably need to find that out. And then
Mhm.
what are the legal guidelines on that? There's a whole bunch of new laws,
The permits.
streamlining stuff.
Mhm.
So we're kind of throwing a wrench in there. So just to
That would be my only concern.
No, that's a good thought. We would have to be mindful of that. I think,
I'm making a note and it's an excellent point, and
Mhm.
I'll make a note of that it needs to be a part of the conversation.
Everybody's paying attention of hopefully to the permit streamlining act, because if you don't, then it's deemed approved. We know that we've been here long enough to know what happens then, huh? I.e. PACE project. Right? Yeah, oh, that one too. But hopefully, if we're mindful of the Permit Streamlining Act and other things that the mayor pointed out, I like calling you the mayor, it's pretty cool. All we would be adding, I think, is a month. And that's just basically for it to get to the San Juan Planning Commission, and then next day, presumably, or within a day or two, the comments from the San Juan Planning Commission could go back over to the county. San Juan Planning Commission meets once a month, the County Planning Commission meets once a month, so we could do some coordination there. So that's blue.
And just to outline or give detail to when the county planning commissioners meet versus our city. Our city meets on the first Tuesday, or yeah, it's the first Tuesday of the month, and the county meets on the third Tuesday. So there would be some time to get this all together, I think.
Oh, that's a great point. So if we met the first part of the month, we could have our comments to the county well before their meeting. Great point.
And I stand corrected, it's a Wednesday, third Wednesday of the month for the county.
Okay, Orange, that's moderate importance to us, presumably.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna, and okay, so we get down to step 6. And so what does, that's the final step.
Mhm.
What is it gonna look like in the end when it gets approved? That's it, step 6?
Well, step 6 is the end of the process
Right.
from the city's standpoint. So
Right,
at step 6, it goes to the county planning commission, who then executes their process. They own it. They're in charge. They're making the.
and we're
determination.
feeling comfortable at that stage in step 6. They have all they need. It's just a matter of processing it into, okay, and when it gets processed, where is it getting processed? Does it update the general plan? Does it, what is it
This,
updating?
what we're talking about is a permit application essentially,
Okay.
or some sort of land use change. We're not talking about any ordinances or anything like that. This is the process for an applicant who wants to do a project within those blue zones.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
got it, yeah.
Okay. Orange area. So this is an area that we would designate as second tier or of moderate importance to us. Same thing, of course, it'd be triggered by an application filed with the county. Same thing, county would forward to San Juan. County processes the application just like they do, or just like they would under the blue areas. Application and county staff report are submitted to San Juan Planning Commission for consideration. However, in the orange area, the San Juan Planning Commission could vote up or down. So San Juan Planning Commission could say no. Could say no to a proposal in the orange area. And if the applicant developer didn't like that, they could appeal to the city council, just like they do now. If the San Juan Bautista Council upholds the planning commission denial, then the applicant's last recourse is to go to the county board of supervisors. And which could, then the supervisors could say, thank you very much, San Juan Planning Commission and Council, but we think this is a good project. We want to do it, notwithstanding your 2 votes denying it. And so we're going to approve the application. And thanks, but no thanks for your input. But you'll see there, I added, however, the decision by San Juan Bautista shall be given, quote, great weight. What does that mean? That means that, okay, supervisors, yeah, it's ultimately your decision. And although you can ultimately overrule the entire city on this thing and approve something, a project that we really feel strongly about, we hope and we want you to, and you're now contractually required to give our determination great weight in your deliberation, your consideration. So it's, what does that, that means that if they otherwise would maybe think, oh yeah, well, who cares? That they should consider that San Juan cares and we said no. And that maybe that should impact and, or will impact, should impact and affect their decision. So that's orange. One thing I want to point out, since all of these tiers, or colors, blue, orange, and yellow, since they all involve county land that is within the county jurisdiction, I thought it was both appropriate and probably, although I haven't researched it, legally necessary to have the county board of supervisors make the final determination in each instance. So you'll see that each one of these tiers has that in common. In each one, county board of supervisors has the final say, since it's their land. Does that make sense, Don?
Yeah, it has to happen that way.
I think so. I think it's legally required.
Not only does it make sense, we don't have any discretion, that's not up to us.
Well, we could form a militia.
Yeah, so
We could get a flag.
does Scott has a statement as far as how we're gonna expedite that quicker? Is that the same as you did with tier 3?
No. No, my concern is that after it leaves the city council of San Juan, it should go to the planning commission for San Benito County.
Wow.
That's the next step.
Mhm.
I mean, that's in their code, right? So you have to do planning commission on a project and then to the county supervisors from there. We can't, unless they want to change.
Well,
Unless they want to change their county code. Well, I think we're asking them to cede that function to us,
Right.
basically. So that planning commission function, we're asking them to cede that process to us, to our planning commission within that tier. And so ultimately, they're getting the ability to appeal. In fact, in this case, they're getting two chances to appeal it. But it's a county project. Yes.
County planning commission's gonna be required.
The county planning commission has to be required. It's a county project. Well, or they can turn around and do the same to us. You know, okay, quid pro quo. Well, no problem. We can skip our planning commission, but we're gonna start intervening on your planning commission. I believe by code doesn't have to follow that step.
I don't have the law in front of me.
Yeah.
But I agree
That's
with you,
something we
Scott.
probably should know.
That's a
Well,
problem. with it.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're right as it stands today. Again, we're asking to change that process.
It may be a state code.
and the thought was, it was here back to your first point on, or your previous point on the third tier in blue, and that is to expedite things. I mean, it doesn't harm anything to kick it to the county planning commission first before it went to the board, but since it's already been through a San Juan planning commission and a San Juan city council, why not just go straight to the decision maker, the final decision maker, the board, to save on time? Now, if county council says, no, it has to go to the county planning commission, okay, fine. I don't know why that would be true, but that, I don't think it matters one way or the other. I'm just trying to save time a little bit, you know? Because
It's a question, yeah, I mean,
it's a good question.
it's absolutely a good question. But from my standpoint, this is what I'd like to ask for. And if we're not able to get there, then that's
Okay.
another.
I don't want to ask for that.
Okay.
I don't,
Okay.
I would like to see it go through the approved process that San Benito County has,
Uh-huh.
just like it's the same process that we have. The project comes before San Juan Bautista, it goes to the planning commission first.
Uh-huh.
And then it could be appealed by the county or to the city council if it's denied.
Uh-huh.
I just don't know how we have that authority to do that.
Well, if I may, so I think currently, if it's within our sphere of influence, they basically hand it over to us anyway. So I know it's not that much different
But
from,
we're-
You know, they process it, they process it.
but I mean, they come to us and say, what do you guys
Absolutely,
want to do?
absolutely.
Yeah,
David Mack spent hours on the last project of that nature.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Our planner spent hours on the last project of that nature, the Dassel project on Mission Vineyard.
Okay,
So we added to those conditions, but ultimately the county planning commission
It went to the county planning.
has jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction. We can't serve as the county planning commission.
If they let us, we
well, if
could.
they say you can,
I
then
don't
you
think so.
can.
I don't know.
Well, we should
It's a
see what
legal
the,
question. I don't
so-
know the answer.
I guess we should check with the California Constitution maybe, and then.
Well, I think we go to the city attorney. Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a question for the city
Matter
attorney.
one way or the other. If it's getting kicked to the county, if the applicant wants to take it to the county for another decision, then doesn't matter if it goes to the county's planning commission first, because if that doesn't go well, then the developer can appeal it to the board of supervisors.
Well, does every project in the county go to the county supervisors? So let's say,
No.
Yeah, well,
No.
let's say if it's a, you know, a 6-story mansion that does that, it goes right to planning commission approves it, it goes, then it gets built.
It gets built.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it does make a difference because if the same person came before us, we deny it, and the county planning commission says we don't deny it, we think it's fine. Then how do we override that?
I don't think the city has the ability to deny legally a project outside its boundaries. Especially without a sphere of influence. I think that's why these ordinances and other tools that we brought forward and maybe have more teeth in it than an MOA. So I do think we
Well-
need a legal opinion on a lot of this.
Well,
stuff.
okay, but wait a minute, there's a misunderstanding here. Because I said in this, I said, if San Juan's final decision, let's say, is a denial of the project, it goes through the city. And the outcome is no. It goes to the county, whether it's through the planning commission first, whatever. It goes to the county. The county makes the decision. So Don, the city can't say no to a county project. And I'm not suggesting
Okay,
otherwise.
I guess I'm taking deny literally or something. Maybe I'm.
Okay, we don't like it, whatever you want to substitute for the word deny.
Okay.
It goes to the city says thumbs down, if you're more comfortable with that. Developer doesn't like a thumbs down, this developer wants thumbs up, so then the developer then goes to the county. Through the planning commission perhaps first.
Well, the developers invested a lot of money to bring this project forward,
Mhm.
and if the city's vote doesn't really count, then they're not gonna care. They're always gonna go to the
Can I
county.
interject? I think the whole thing, assumption that the developer's gonna come to us in a tier 2 area that we've outlined, that's county, that's not even in our SOI or city limit. So they're not even gonna come to us, they're gonna go to the county, and the county's gonna do, according to our understanding of agreement, they're gonna give us the heads up, because what we're banking on here is that we have a more amicable and transparent relationship with the county on any future development in our desired planning areas, according to what is important as less important, more important. Oh, you're getting too close. So we're hoping on banking on that relationship, but I think I agree with Scott. You've got to go through the process of the county planning commission before we can say yay or nay. But if we have this relationship and, there's certain thresholds that it doesn't meet, that makes it a lousy development, hopefully that's going to speak to their better judgment, right? And ordinances and laws.
Yeah, I guess we're I get, from my standpoint, this is what I'd like to ask for. And if it's not possible, I understand, but I don't feel like we have the expertise. And I'm just suggesting that we set that question aside. If in fact it is legal, and we'll find that out, is this something we'd like to ask for? In my mind, it is. I would like to see us be the lead agency on the stuff that is planned for development near the city limits. And that's what I'm suggesting. It's like, it's not, we're not gonna decide here what that process looks like. We're making suggestions for what we'd like to see in our perfect world. And we do have to take into consideration what we think the county would accept. I've had conversations with two of the county supervisors, neither of which brought up any objection to what's described here. So, and so I don't know, Errol and,
Can you disclose which two county supervisors?
sure, Colin Kosmicki
Okay.
and, Mr. Zanger. And so, I don't know, I guess I don't think we should cut ourselves off without getting that legal opinion. I mean, we clearly need that legal opinion. The concern is,
And that's why I brought it up.
yeah, okay, good. I
This
just
is-
don't want
this
to
is why I
get,
brought it up.
I don't want to stop at this. I don't want to cut this. I don't want to redline this.
Yeah.
As an ask until we get that information. If you're comfortable with that, if you guys are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
We're not taking action on anything.
Yeah.
You're giving staff direction. That's what I see it.
Yeah, yeah, okay, good, okay, well, I just, that clarified the
Yeah,
conversation.
staff has been directed.
Okay. David, did you have anything? Yeah, please, no, you're comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, so that we very clearly need to,
Yeah,
yeah,
can we, it doesn't have to be a dog town.
okay,
Let's find a light.
okay. So let's move, are we, any more conversation about the orange, or can we move on to the yellow, that first tier? Yeah, go ahead,
I like
please.
Dan, I think, and you also, probably all of you, except for me, is making sure that there's something in that, since now we're dealing with a moderate important sphere, and next is a most important sphere, that there should be a language or something in there about either co-lead or lead or agency,
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
okay.
Even at the moderate level.
Sure,
Before we move on to yellow, I just wanted to point out, again, keep things real simple. With blue tier, we're basically, in all three tiers, we're getting notice of that something's happening. The blue tier, we're requiring the ability to comment, to send comments over to the county. Orange tier, we're elevating, not only are we going to give you some comments, we're going to give you a vote. It's still advisory. The county can ignore the vote, but it's just a little bit stronger than a comment letter. You see what I'm saying? You've now the city has taken a formal vote, and here's what they think. Because it's, hopefully it would turn their heads or get their attention more than just a comment. Now they've actually voted that not in favor of this thing, and okay, well, we better pay attention to that. Okay, so yellow. This is stuff, when Chris and I were talking about this, we called it on our doorstep. Closest and most important. So the yellow area, I think I mentioned this when we passed this around last time. I picked parcels that were contiguous to the city limits. So that literally is on these parcels are on our doorstep. So once, number one, applications filed with the county, that's number two, we get notice of it. Number three, the applicant then, instead of going over to the planning department on technology, the applicant comes to San Juan. And where the applicant is given the county list of approved outside planning firms or vendors. And if Ariel or Abraham were still on, they could tell you the county has a list of, I don't know, half a dozen like EMCs on there, Rincon, Kimley Horn. There's a number of outside providers that the county has vetted and approved in advance as being suitable to do planning work on behalf of the county. And that's what these firms would then be hired. And by the way, if you do any kind of a project of any moment in San Bernardino County, you're going to be hiring one of those firms. The county, even today, the county, and Abraham and Ariel would agree with this. The county doesn't have the bandwidth to process substantial projects. They like it instead to be handled by an outside firm paid for all by the applicant, which is what number 4 says. The paid for, so the applicant would come to San Juan, here's the list that you can, or the county doesn't let you choose from the list. The county usually tells you, we think for this project, this firm would be the most appropriate to use. And then applicant says, okay, great. Now, to Scott's point a few meetings ago, or last meeting, maybe, well, we don't have a budget for that. Well, we don't have to, because the applicant would be required to pay that by entering into a contract with the city called a reimbursement agreement. That would also require a substantial deposit towards those outside planning firm fees. And that's standard county process. Number 5, that outside firm, their deliverable is a report that, if it were a county project, is prepared, or it's like a staff report. As if they were the county, they're preparing their staff report for the county planning commission. Well, in this doorstep, closest and most important first tier, instead of that outside vendor preparing that for the county's use, they would prepare it for the city's use. And that application and staff report prepared by the outside vendor would therefore go through the San Juan Planning Commission. If the Planning Commission votes it down, the appeal would go to the City Council, just like is the process now. If council upholds the San Juan Planning Commission, then once again, it goes to the Board of Supervisors. Well, pending Scott's point, maybe it should go to the County Planning Commission before it goes to the supervisors. Either way, it goes to the county then for the ultimate final decision. So you can see how that kind of ratchets up San Juan's involvement in any application that is proposed for development within that Tier 1 yellow area. So that's it.
I'm happy to take these ideas and share them not only with our planning staff, our contract planning staff, but with our city attorney.
That'd be great.
That would probably be good.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's happening after this.
Planning commission.
Oh, okay, then we will
Stick around if you want. It's on our
interact together.
tax.
Any questions or comments on that first tier? From the committee? Questions, concerns? Kudos, Dan, great job. Your typing is excellent.
Thank you, Dan.
David? All good at this stage? Okay, okay, good, thanks.
Just want to go somewhere and think about it.
No, absolutely.
Well, his tree fort, within myself.
His tree
I'll
fort,
turn with myself.
his tree fort, I heard.
There's
Nice.
a tree fort behind your house, right?
Did he get a permit for that?
Yeah, it's existing non-conforming.
Existing non-conforming.
as a unit for a house for arena now.
Jackie, did you have any questions, any additional?
No, I'm really proud of the work that this group has done, and Dan, I know you spearheaded the tiers.
Yeah.
I like it. I think you should have had shooting flames out of tier 1.
We'll work on that
Okay.
for next time. I love it. I've made a couple of notes about issues. The only thing I'd like to add is I think this came up once before, and I just want to enumerate it a little more clearly. In my mind, what's going to trigger the actions within this planning area, it's not just building permits, but subdivision requests or lot splits, zoning or land use change applications, and or conditional use permits. And there might be other classifications if you guys think about those sorts of things, but those are all processes or the process that have to go through this sort of process in order to be codified. And so those would all fall within this new structure.
Zoning and that's general plan stuff, right? Zoning, land use, like David keeps going back to general plan. I think I'm starting to get what you mean. How much of this are we gonna affect
Yeah.
their general plan? So.
Well, and maybe I misunderstand, but if
zoning.
somebody asks for a zoning change on a lot, say, in town, that doesn't require a general plan amendment, does it?
Well, it depends what the general plan says. But
That's,
a lot of times the county project will be inconsistent with the county general plan. So what the applicant will do is in addition to the application for the project, they'll include an application for a general plan amendment and a zone
Okay.
change all in one.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that's what you're referring to.
Okay, yeah, and I just though, the,
Yeah, I mean.
We're gonna follow it anyway.
yeah, but this is what we're talking about is an applicant coming forward and saying, I want to, so there isn't necessarily an inconsistency in the general plan. It's they're requesting a change because what they want to do would create an inconsistency. So it's, you're further ahead. But again, it's someone coming in and requesting something that differs or varies. So it's those variances, but it's not only building permits.
Yeah.
It's somebody saying, hey, I have this large scale ag business and I want to put a new processing plant over in the corner of my property. I need the zoning to change to accommodate that. That would trigger this process.
Please
For
don't forget
instance.
to list annexation request as well.
Good, okay, I'll put that on the list as well.
If we get this into a nutshell, is that going to essentially generate our agreements? Right?
I
And
think
That's the
there's
hope.
gonna be, yeah, I mean, I think this becomes the starting point.
Right.
And then there's a lot of mechanical stuff that will then have to be addressed by staff, both here at the city, at the county, as well as both legal councils. And then it goes to the Board of Supervisors for approval as well.
And I just
So-
want to add, members of the committee, chair and vice chair, is that this is like, I think this is a huge monumental move on the part of the city of San Juan Bautista. We have never been at the table in this manner as a formal committee, the city requesting a seat at the table when it concerns county projects or, as Chair Moritano stated, land use changes, zoning changes. This is the first time ever. We've only had our opportunity for people to come to the table for us as a city in the way of our appointed planning commissioner, county planning commissioner, Mr. Rich Way, who was appointed by our District 2 Board of Supervisor Colin Kosmicki. Those are our only two at this point in history. And before that, it was Supervisor Vitello and his appointee. So I think this is a huge accomplishment that our city has really embarked on, and I think we should applaud ourselves.
I think you might be discounting the 93 massive sphere of influence. So we did have a seat at the table then because that was approved by the county and LAVCO. So we actually did have some type. So
I'm liking this one a lot better, though.
Well,
This is really.
absolutely. And that's what I've been squawking about for the last 8 years. So yeah,
How we expediting?
nothing's fast, David. You know this. You've been dealing with government for a long time. Well, look at the definition.
Well, so I think that it's very important at this stage for everybody to take a look at what's been suggested. Run it through scenarios in your head. Are there other considerations? Where are there pitfalls? So that we can run it the theoretical through the city attorney, red flag some, questions that we may have, or we think there may be pitfalls, and then get that feedback and see where we can address it.
One thing we can do to facilitate that is request a detailed transcript of the discussion.
Sure.
So that you guys know exactly what was shared and discussed, and trigger reminders, what have you.
Okay, well, and I would encourage, I have not worked with the new city attorney. You have been working with them, and some of my experience with the past city attorney was that I should say a past city attorney, was that there was only a focus on risk mitigation and no help or suggestion for how to get to the desired result. And my hope is that we can have a more productive conversation, and that we understand, he understand what the intent is, and then help us find, if we've suggested a path that's not right or not workable, that he may have an alternate suggestion for us to get to the desired result. Anyway, that's all that.
As long as Liz doesn't have to do action minutes on these meetings and take up all of her time just on our meeting, I'm good with a recorded transcript.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I certainly don't need a transcript.
sure, but I just want to make sure she is.
Do we have any, before we have your memo or your motion, do we have any public comment on item 4C? Seeing no comment, I will entertain motions.
Second.
Third.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, we're done. Thank you very much, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.